Welcome to Cutoff Genes, the podcast that helps you find your truth using nothing but DNA. I'm Julie Dixon Jackson, and I'm a genetic genealogist, henceforth known as a Gen Genie.
I am Richard Castle, the producer and co-host, and I'm happy to be here today, Julie. How are you doing?
Oh, I am great.
You know, this is episode 51, and now we're actually approaching my own age.
Yeah. Mine as well.
Yes. Well, no, maybe.
No, I started going backwards once I hit 50.
Oh, okay.
So.
That's right. So we're about 10 episodes back.
Yeah. Oh, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
That's right.
All right. So I've had an interesting week.
Do tell. I'm interested to hear.
Okay, so those of you, I don't know if did you notice, were you on Facebook at all this weekend?
I did check in.
Okay, so on...
Usually I just check out. I'm like the Hotel California.
You know what, you can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave.
That's right. That's how Facebook is.
Told.
Facebook is basically Hotel California.
Facebook is Hotel California.
Right?
Facebook is a Hotel California. All right.
Don't sing anymore. We have to pay rights for that.
I changed the lyrics, though.
Yeah, I know.
It's parody.
It's parody.
Yeah. So I, earlier last week, or maybe even the week before, I started hearing some unusual noises under my house that usually tells me that there is a critter down there.
Okay. I did see this little video, but I wasn't following the story.
Let's get to that in a minute. And... it was getting louder and louder, and I'm like, we had pest guys come out a couple years ago and block off all the entrances to under the house because we had a rat problem in the past.
It happens.
I know. So my husband walked around the house, and there was one which was right underneath the living room, which is where I hang out most of the time. The screen had been bent open.
Wow.
Like something strong had bent it and gotten under there.
Wow.
So I was afraid to close it back up at that point because I wanted whatever was in there to get out. I didn't want them to stay in there and die because that's happened before.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yes.
But that is a good concern to have because you don't want to...
We had a possum extravaganza once.
Oh, my God.
My nephew that we forced to go under the house will never forgive me.
You know, we live in a big city. It's amazing to me that we have all these creatures.
We have so much wildlife. We live in the flats of the valley, you guys, and sometimes... there are coyotes walking down the street.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
How do they live?
They're very skinny.
Yeah, are they?
Yeah, they eat people's animals. That's probably how they survive.
Well, I mean, honestly, I had a friend say he was in Griffith Park the other day, and early in the morning, and he saw a guy walking a poodle, and he saw a coyote stalking them, and he told the guy, "Pick up that dog."
Pick the dog up. Oh, that's my biggest fear.
I know.
Well, no, I have much bigger fears.
Well, me too, but that's one of them.
Yeah. Okay. So, anywho, so it was getting louder and louder. And I was I'd stomp on the floor and try to get them to and nothing happened. So in the meantime, my husband goes online and researches how to get rid of possums because we assumed it was a possum under the house. And so apparently they don't like ammonia. And they also don't like the smell of other dogs. Okay. So I was brushing Brooklyn out.
I'm just like a possum. I don't like ammonia or the smell of other dogs either.
Me neither. You big old possum. Big old opossum. So I brushed out Brooklyn, and she has a lot of hair.
Brooklyn is her dog.
No, it's my daughter.
She did not fly to New York and brush out everybody in Brooklyn because she's a hairdresser. Just trying to confirm.
That would be a comb out or a tease. And then my husband took it, and he put it all around the opening. Which I was like, I don't know if you should do that now at the opening because we want them to go out there.
Right.
And there's a hatch in the hall closet that goes to under the house, and they hate light. So my husband hung a flashlight in there kind of thing. And then I threw some more dog hair down there.
Oh, my gosh.
So then almost immediately I started hearing them in the walls.
Oh,
so
my
instead
God.
of getting out of there, they went up. Oh. So they're up in the walls, and it's getting louder and louder. I have video of the sounds they're making. I can hear them picking things up and dropping them. They went and then into the ceiling.
Oh, that's frightening.
And there was more than one because I would hear one at one end and one at the other end. And it was so distracting that I couldn't even be in there without getting grossed out.
This is like a horror movie to me.
Yes, everybody is like, get out. So
Julie, get out. They're crawling from inside the house.
So my fear was that they were mating in there.
Yeah.
And then, everything would go to hell in a handbasket.
At least someone's getting some action in that house.
Exactly.
More power to them.
Power to the possums. So I was told that the city will come out and give you traps and then take it away when you catch because they're pretty easy to catch.
Okay.
Well, the city no longer does that. FYI, everybody, don't call animal control.
In Los Angeles.
Yeah, it doesn't work. So I had to call somebody that would charge, and I finally got a hold of a guy, and he came very highly recommended, and he was going to come out on Friday. I called him on Thursday, and right before he was going to come over, he had an emergency and had to get out of town, and said, I'll call you on the weekend. So I was like, great. In the meantime, at some point, so they're in there during the day because they don't like light.
Right.
So I thought I heard them leave because it's a pretty small opening, and I heard kind of a scraping, maybe going out that hole, which is right under a window. So I thought maybe they left. So I went and I put a bunch of heavy things in front of the hole just to see what would happen.
Okay.
And then my husband, he has cameras set up in various places around the house,
security cameras.
Yes, security cameras. There you go. No. For other things.
Yeah.
No, not really. And he put a camera right there. He put it on the air conditioning unit and pointed at the hole.
Yeah.
And sure enough, at 11:30 at night, he comes. I was already in bed, and he comes upstairs and he goes, "Watch this." And there is not only one but two enormous raccoons. Huge.
Yeah.
Trying to get back in there. And they looked very confused, but they didn't look hysterical. So, which leads me to believe that there aren't babies in there. I really hope not.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I would still have the guy come and check.
Well, I'm going to wait a few days and see if they did. But, I mean,
Because if there are babies in there,
they'll smell.
they will die.
Yeah,
and
I know.
they will smell. And
Well, I would think
it's
they've probably
terrible.
died by now because it's been 3 days. I mean, I would hate for that to happen, but I haven't heard anything.
Are we going to have to do a DNA test on these babies to find out who their parents are? And
I know who they are. They've been evicted from my house. So, yeah. But you know what? They're really, really cute.
I know they're cute, but they're vicious.
They came back last night, too.
Did they
And it
really?
looked like one of them saw the camera and did a double take.
Well, it's Hollywood. They're
Yes,
used
they know.
to it.
They
It's
know how to find their
paparazzi.
light. Anyway, that was...
Possum-razzi. No, these are not possums. Never mind.
They're so cute.
How dare they ruin my pun like this?
Raccoon swoon. Never mind.
No.
All right. So that was my adventures, and
Oh
I
my
did
God.
post a video on my Facebook page. I'll put it on the group page too, if anybody is interested in seeing my pet possums.
But now the thing is to go around that house and make sure there's no holes.
yes, we've got
because
to
they obviously
reseal it up. Those things are strong.
Oh, yeah.
If their little hands were able to bend that back, that's
Right.
terrifying, isn't it?
I know.
Yikes.
I know.
Yeah. All right. End of story. Cool, huh?
What's going on in DNA, Julie?
Nothing. Okay, let's get to it. Okay, so let's start with Corrections Corner. As we know, I've always got a lot of them because I make so many mistakes.
Well, that's, par for the course.
So from a few weeks ago, we were talking about Chanel number 5, and we wanted to know why it had that name and what happened to 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, I said it was the highest number. That was Edith
That's right.
Bunker.
That's right. Yes.
I remember.
Yes, I named the episode that. That's right. It's
Did
the best
you?
because it's the highest number.
I didn't realize that.
Okay, so I'm going to give you here's a party game for you guys if you ever want to impress people with your useless knowledge. Okay, so at the age of 12, Chanel was handed over to the care of nuns, and for the next 6 years spent a stark, disciplined existence in a convent orphanage, Aubazine, founded in the 12th century, blah, 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 in central France. From the earliest days there, the number 5 had potent associations for her. For Chanel, the number 5 was especially esteemed as signifying the pure embodiment of a thing, its spirit, its mystic meaning. The paths that led Chanel to the cathedral for daily prayers were laid out in circular patterns repeating the number 5. Her affinity for the number 5 commingled with the Abbey Gardens and, by the extension, the lush surrounding hillsides abounding the rock roses. In 1920, when presented with the small glass vials containing sample scents numbered 1 to 5 and 20 to 24 for her assessment, she chose the 5th vial.
Oh, so she did not go and release 4 others.
No, but she had 4 others to choose from.
Right.
Chanel told her master perfumer, Ernest Beau, excellent pronunciation.
That was beautiful.
Yeah, whom she had commissioned to develop a new fragrance. I present my dress collection on the 5th of May, the 5th month of the year. And so we will let this sample number 5 keep the name it has already. It will bring good luck. So maybe she didn't even smell it. Maybe the others actually smelled better.
I heard it smells like dog hair and ammonia.
Oh, that's what we call a callback, ladies and gentlemen.
Raccoon number 5. Oh, it was for possums. You said the possums don't like it. Right?
Well, apparently raccoons don't either,
Yeah.
because once we realized it was raccoons, then my husband, of course, jumped back on the internet, and it also applies to raccoons and probably skunks.
And humans, obviously, because we don't like the smell of ammonia.
Who likes the smell of ammonia?
Yeah.
I don't know. So that is that one correction. There's one more.
I think that was more of an elaboration than a correction.
Oh yeah,
I mean, it's not like we made a mistake when we talked about it.
should call that part clarification corner.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
We clarified it.
Yes. And here's the other one. How long does sperm live? Remember when we were talking about the semi-identical twins that I also need to go back and talk about?
Yes, I do remember this about how long it can once it's inside somebody else or whatever, or outside of the body.
So
or whatever
how long? Now, before I give you the answer, what is your best guess?
I would like to believe they go on and on and on. No, I actually don't, because
Like
you know
Celine Dion.
I could say something really disgusting right now, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to say let's hope that they live for maybe an hour.
Oh boy, you're way off.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
5 days. 5 days.
5 days?
It says, since sperm can only live for a maximum of 5 days in the female reproductive tract, only a small number of sperm will even survive the long journey through the female reproductive tract. Oh, they said that twice. Therefore, couples trying to conceive should plan to have intercourse a number of times in the days just prior to ovulation.
So those sperm are swimming for
hanging
5 days?
Well, I've got a feeling it's kind of survival of the fittest. They probably start dropping off pretty early,
Yeah.
and just only the toughest ones
It's like a marathon.
make it all the way through.
It's like,
yeah.
or like swimming the English Channel.
Exactly. They're surrounded by sharks and boats and are covered in Vaseline.
And some of them, yeah, exactly. And some of them make it all the way across, and some others just kind of die off. And,
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
wow. 5 days.
5 whole days. So think about that, guys.
That's some hardy sperm.
Yes, it is.
You know what? Nature's really incredible when you
It's
think about it.
Really,
I mean,
really cool.
that's how it works.
Yeah.
Something lives for 5 days.
Yes.
In order, and it's got one job,
Right.
right? And then it's done.
It has one job.
And then it's done.
And it doesn't always do it well. Okay. So
well, it's because it's coming from men. You know,
that explains
it's hit or miss.
everything. And I will piggyback on that fact with a correction from our listener, Jen McGillivray.
If you're going to piggyback on the
I
sperm,
knew,
honey,
I knew you were going to
that
make
sperm
a
is never
joke.
going to make it across the channel. We're never going to achieve fertilization this way, Julie.
If we ignore him, he'll stop, everybody.
This is true. Because I need an
Just
audience.
like your dog.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
All right.
I'm
So
sorry. Go on.
Jen McGillivray, who is one of our scientific minds that listens to us and has stuck it out for 50 episodes.
And thank God for them.
Thank God for them,
There are no
guys.
scientific minds on this podcast.
Clearly. All right. So she said, I had to write a comment while I was thinking of it, and because I found this really helpful explainer video regarding Sesquizygotic twins. Remember the woman who had semi-identical twins?
Yes.
They're also called sesquizygotic.
Oh, okay.
The biological explanation of how it occurs is pretty complex. No kidding, I won't even go into it. But the important correction is that the mother's egg was indeed fertilized by 2 of the same father's sperm.
Oh, see, that's the thing. That's what I thought.
Which is why the twins shared roughly 87% DNA. I went back, that original article was actually incorrect.
Oh, okay.
I was citing an incorrect article, guys. So there you go.
See what happens? See, I remember saying that I thought, so it was from the same father. And you said, no. It's like, you know.
That was what, to me, the most interesting thing about it.
Right. But do you think that is possible?
I believe
That a woman could have 2 children at the same, become pregnant by 2 different men at the same time. Is it possible? Scientifically?
Jan, I need your help on
Yes.
this. I remember them saying something about most identical twins that are born don't survive because they have the
see.
XX and XY chromosomes.
Right.
It's like they have 3 or something.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. It's still a fascinating subject. And,
Yeah,
and
it
it's
is.
nice of our listener to
Thanks,
to
Jen.
help elaborate and
Yep.
clarify.
And
Correct. Whatever corner this is. Is
all
this
of them.
elaboration corner, corrections corner, clarification?
Let's just call it the corner.
The corner. Let's just hang out at the corner. Standing on the corner, making all the mistakes
Let's
again.
stand under the street light and harmonize. Okay. And this coming hot off the presses right before we got here from Angela Harris Wilson. She said, I just heard on another podcast that Ancestry, how dare you listen to another podcast, will be rolling out a messaging system. You'll be able to see if and when a message to a user is read, as well as be able to see when they are online.
Oh, wow.
Like Facebook Messenger. Anybody else have any intel on this? That's what she asked. This could be huge. Yeah, it could be huge.
Because some of the questions are like when you reach out to somebody, you have no idea if they've seen it or read it or ignored it or just
if they even know if their settings are set up so that when they have a message, they get notified.
Wow, that's huge.
It's huge. I'm very excited about that because when things take longer than expected, it's usually because I'm waiting for somebody to respond.
Sure. Well, here's the thing. I feel like at least now you know when you're being ignored.
I'm not going to be ignored, Rich.
Thank you, Glenn Close.
Mm-hmm.
I know your Fatal Attraction reference, Julie.
Yeah, you do. Okay.
Now she's going to go downstairs and cook my rabbit. She's already killed some baby.
dog.
She's already killed some baby raccoons. Might as well take my rabbit and put it in the pot.
Oh, they're so cute. My daughter, by the way, has decided when she saw that, she has decided, and all of her friends have decided that she is the raccoon whisperer because where she goes to school, she's in the Shakespeare Society and they have a Shakespeare house. And there are raccoons in the roof of the Shakespeare house.
What a quinkydink.
Exactly. So all of her friends are calling her the raccoon whisperer. And one friend, I can't remember exactly what she said, but she posted on her Facebook page that not only is she a raccoon whisperer, but she is an actual 3 raccoons stacked up wearing a trench coat herself.
Oh, I see. So she's sort of like in disguise.
All right. So on that note, let's all ponder raccoons and take a break.
If you're enjoying Cutoff Genes, please subscribe, rate, and review. Now, back to Julie and me.
Okay, so for the first part of the segment, I'm going to talk about the What Are the Odds tool on DNA Painter.
Is this segment called What Are the Odds?
Sure it is, or WATO for short. Actually, that is what they call it, WATO. And there's a whole Facebook page just for this tool, by the way, if you want to get help with it. So it's a tool in DNA Painter, which was developed by Johnny Pearl and Leah LaPearl Larkin talked to Johnny about devising this particular
So there was a
tool.
need for this tool.
Yes,
and
it's something that
to develop it.
Yes, and she asked him to develop it. They developed it together, and it's actually very helpful. It's what I do now before I even start to build a tree. Here's the goal. Here's the goal of the What Are the Odds feature.
Okay.
It's to help you figure out where an unknown person fits into a known tree. We'll call that person the target. If you're an adoptee looking for a birth family, you're the target. Alternately, if you have a well-supported tree with an unknown match, they're the target. And this approach can help you figure out how they're related to your family. So before you use the tool, you have to have these things. Multiple DNA matches of 40 centimorgans or more who are all descended from in known ways, that's important, from the same ancestor or couple.
And what do you mean by in known ways?
Meaning you know exactly how many generations down they are from that original couple.
Okay, gotcha.
Because the whole point of it is to calculate probabilities.
Okay. And you don't want to put in something that's like
incorrect
or a hypothesis because it could throw everything off. Yeah.
Yes, it will throw everything off. A descendant tree of the ancestral person couple that includes the known DNA matches in their proper places. The amount of shared DNA, centimorgans are preferable, but percentage works, between the target person and each of those DNA matches. You have a place in there to punch in their centimorgan amounts. And what it does, basically, two or more educated guesses about where the target person might fit in. So what you do is you input all of those people and where they fit into the tree, into the skeleton tree, and how many centimorgans they match with the target, which is you or whoever you're trying to fit. And then you add hypotheses in different places in the tree to see what makes the most sense of placement for that person in relationship to how they match those other people, in relationship to that original couple.
Okay, I'm a little lost only in that. So where's the hypothesis coming from? I mean, you're just saying...
The hypothesis comes from the amount of shared DNA between you and all those people. And say if you... Hypothesis 1 has you in one position, and it calculates whether or not it's likely, first of all, that you could be in that position based on your relationship to those other people.
Okay.
And you want to do several hypotheses.
Are you saying like hypotheses in terms of I'm trying to see if this person is my third cousin, or
could be my third cousin.
Could be, yeah.
Right. So then you get a list. You'll either get 0, which means there's no way that this person goes there, or you can get a 1. You'll always get a 1 if it's possible. When you start adding more, you'll get a higher number for the more likely mathematically.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
So basically the hypothesis is that you have to have a question to ask in order for it to answer something.
Exactly. You have to be specific about the question.
It's not going to tell you,
Right.
this person is this to you. You have to ask it. Am I related in this way?
Yes. Is this who I am?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So you don't actually talk because it won't talk back to you, but you know what I mean.
I would talk to it. I would,
You're going to be a very lonely person.
I'd be like, hey, Siri, ask this DNA
WATO.
painter, ask WATO this question for me, and then just get back to me later and let me know if this person is my third cousin.
Exactly. So I know a lot of you are confused with what I just said, but the good news is YouTube is a thing. And I know that Leia has, she has a YouTube video on her website, and I think that particular one is called Science the Hell Out of Your DNA or something like that. She's funny.
You can Google it or look it up on YouTube. Yeah.
Or I'll probably put a link on the page. Duh. Okay.
Of course you will.
So now that we have that out of the way,
yes,
I kind of went down a rabbit hole this weekend.
Is this the rabbit hole from the rabbit that you're cooking
this
right
is
now,
not
Miss
my
Pelosi?
cooking rabbit hole. This is, or a raccoon hole. This is, I just heard a parrot outside. Did you hear that?
There's a bird across the
It's
street.
a screeching bird.
A screeching bird, yeah. He knew that we were doing our podcast today and said, I'm going to do some extra screeches.
I'm gonna mess it up.
Because everyone in Hollywood wants to be, a star.
Why do you think they're here?
Right.
Yeah, it's true. All right, so Saturday morning, Laura Campbell, who was a new listener, posted on the page asking some advice about people. Then Melissa LeBlanc Trachea, who was another listener, chimed in and said, "Hey, Julie, this might be an interesting story. Laura matches my husband at about 502 centimorgans, not about exactly 502 centimorgans across 21 segments. We don't care about the segments." Which is a very high match for an unknown person. So the story is that Laura's mother is adopted.
All right.
And she already knows who her grandmother is, who her mother's mother is, and she's passed away. Now she's trying to find the father.
Okay.
So we're thinking that her grandfather is somehow related to Melissa's husband.
Oh, all right.
Because he matches her. Uh-huh. So I used the WATO tool to do exactly that. There were several known matches that I know who they are based on because Melissa knows a lot of her husband's matches that also match Laura. Mm-hmm. And we came to the conclusion that it definitely could be one of his cousins, I think. I can't remember, but we came up with something that we thought it probably was.
Yes.
It wasn't conclusive.
Right.
And I hadn't built the tree. I'll never do anything without building a tree to really confirm.
Right. That's what that bird across the street said, too.
It said.
He needs a tree.
Yes. He needs a tree.
That's what he's screeching about.
So then, all of a sudden, Melissa messages me and she goes, okay, there's something else that we didn't know until now. Laura has another match at the very top of over 1,700 centimorgans.
Okay.
At the very top that is not related to Melissa's husband.
That's a lot. That's a lot of centimorgans.
Well, I tell you what it is. It's either an aunt, a grandmother, or a half sibling.
Wow.
It has to be one of those three things.
Oh, that's exciting.
Right. But she doesn't match Melissa's husband. So she's not of that line.
Right.
Long story short, after doing some detective work and online sleuthing, they believe that anonymous tester is a woman who was married to one of her husband's relatives.
Okay. Well.
But how? Meaning she would match the Cherkiyas and she would match her by marriage. So that would have to mean a blend of her husband and this woman's maiden name. It would have to be one of their kids. However, the dates are off.
By how much?
Years, like generations.
Oh.
So then we discover, Laura mentions that there had actually been a question within her family as to whether or not her father was her father.
Oh.
So now we are in a place where we think her father is not her biological father, and it's one of the sons of that top match.
Wow, it's again, Miss Marple. I know I keep going to Agatha Christie's.
Well, I have to give credit to Melissa for this because she was working because she knew who these people were.
Okay.
And when she got that new piece of information, because I looked at her matches and I saw that match at the top, but I just assumed it was a known relative of hers, of her mother's.
Then she can be Jessica Fletcher.
Exactly.
And you are Miss Marple.
Do you hear that, Melissa? Oh, Jessica's more flattering.
Well, I mean, Angela Lansbury played Jessica Fletcher.
I know. I want to be Jessica Fletcher.
Yeah.
But not Miss Marple.
Well, here's the thing. They're both like women of a certain age, and the only
one
reason
is more certain than the other.
the only reason I'm going to these ladies is because I can't think of any other sleuths, ladies who are young.
Nancy Drew. Hello.
Oh well, okay. I'm not gonna call you Nancy Drew.
Why not?
Because I'm no Hardy Boy.
I don't even know what that means. Well, I know who the Hardy Boys are, but it's Sean
easier
Cassidy, everybody.
Let's just put it this way. It's easier to round up to Jessica Fletcher and Miss Marple than it is to round down to Nancy Drew at this point, Julie.
I take such offense to that. I need to go.
I'm an equal opportunity offender.
I
am closer to Hercule
to
Poirot than I am to Andy Hardy. No, wait, not Andy Hardy. Andy Hardy was
Mickey Rooney.
Mickey Rooney.
Oh. He was the biggest star in the world.
I know, but I'm
self-proclaimed.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right, you and I are Mickey and Judy. How's that?
We are.
We're Mickey and Judy, but we're solving crimes.
I've got a barn.
Let's put on a show.
Only
we are putting on a show.
Only theater people will understand that one, or old movie buffs, which, So anyway, before we get out of here for this segment, those two ladies, as we speak, are building a tree.
Oh, that should be exciting.
I'm teaching them how to do it. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I wanted to. Guys, I'm so busy. I would love to have built it myself, but I'm teaching them how to do it. So maybe Melissa has a new job. All right. So that's that story, and I will update you guys as it happens. And
fascinating, something to watch and keep up on. Yes.
Yay! All right, let's take a break.
Thank you for listening to Cutoff Genes, the new podcast starring Julie Dixon Jackson.
Okay, we're back with story time.
Great. More stories, please.
I am so excited about this story time.
Why?
Well, I've talked about this book before, The Foundling.
Oh, yeah.
By Paul Fronczak.
A while back.
Paul agreed to talk to us.
Oh, my God, how great.
So, yeah, I had a great conversation with him. And I want you guys to hear it. So,
I can't wait to hear this one because I remember when you were telling the story about this book. It was part of like our book, our book nook. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah. So here's Paul, and we'll see you on the other side. Hey, everybody. I have with me on the line, we're Skyping actually from Vegas, Paul Fronczak, Welcome, Paul.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks for having me.
Paul has written a remarkable book about his epic odyssey. If you think my odyssey is epic, wait till you hear Paul's. It's one of the first books I ever read, and it's called The Foundling, correct, Paul?
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about your childhood. Tell us what you feel like telling us, Paul.
All right, so the book it's a true story about my life and all the people that are affected by it. It started in 1964 in Chicago, Illinois. Mr. and Mrs. Fronczak had a baby in Michael Reese Hospital. Baby was about a day old in the hospital. Someone disguised as a nurse came in and told Mrs. Fronczak that the doctor had to see the baby. So Mrs. Fronczak, seeing a nurse, handed the baby over to the nurse. And that nurse disappeared out of the hospital, vanished without a trace. And that set off the largest manhunt in Chicago history. 200 police officers, 175,000 letter carriers all went out that day, all through the night to try to find this baby, knocking on doors, going door to door. It was crazy.
I can't imagine the despair your parents must have felt.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
And the sad part was Paul was kidnapped about 10 a.m. that day, but the hospital didn't notify Mrs. Fronczak until about 3 p.m.
Oh, my
They
Lord.
thought the baby was just misplaced and that they could find it, and no one was any wiser. So months went by, years went by, and all of a sudden, okay, so let's go back a little
Okay.
bit. So a year later, a baby was found abandoned in Newark, New Jersey, outside of McCrory's Variety Store, one of the hottest stores of that time on Broad Street in New Jersey. The store was so popular that they actually had their own subway platform going into the store. So this baby was found outside abandoned in a stroller. Someone phoned in an anonymous tip to the New Jersey police. The baby was picked up, put in the system, was placed with a foster home, the Eckerts.
Okay.
They were known for having like this best foster home in New Jersey. So the baby was placed with them, given the name Scott McKinley, baptized, and living with his family for over a year.
How old was he when he was found?
They're estimating between 2, 1.5, maybe 2, 2.5.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, the FBI reached out to the foster home and said that this baby is actually the kidnapped Fronczak baby. So they came and took the baby away. And so the Fronczaks were notified in Chicago that we believe we found your son. So the Fronczaks, I'm sorry, go ahead.
How soon after he was found were they notified?
This is after he was placed with the Eckerts for over a year.
Oh, and then they
Yeah.
decided he was Paul Fronczak?
Correct.
Okay. Wow. All right.
Yeah. Supposedly they ruled out 10,000 other children, boys, all based on the shape of the ear. You know, it's funny. Michael Reese Hospital never took Paul's blood or footprints like the normal procedure, but they had one picture of him. So they based this entirely off the shape of his ear from the picture.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so they called the Fronczaks.
They called the Fronczaks. So the Fronczaks drove from Chicago to New Jersey, and they were placed in a room with the baby, the Paul, and they were given a little time to get to know this baby, and then they were asked, "Is this your child?"
I mean, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So my parents didn't talk about this for a long, long time, but just recently, my mom opened up and told me how she actually felt, and she said that the world was watching because this was like the biggest kidnapping case in our country.
Right.
And back then, the FBI was the utmost authority. And when they tell you something, you were to believe it. And they were telling my mom and dad, "This is your child."
Sure.
So my mom said she could either say no, put the baby back in the system, and
And then she's
turn her-
rejected her possible child.
Exactly. Or she could say, "Yeah, that's my child," because he very well could be.
Yeah.
So she said, "Yeah, that's my son, Paul."
So that was Paul. So they took him home
They took him home. Yeah.
and raised him as their son.
Correct.
Okay. And that was you.
Sure.
Okay. So fast forward to when, so you essentially were adopted.
No, it's true. It's just true though, because they didn't have a blood test.
Yeah.
And all the blood tests were inconclusive. They couldn't prove 100% that I was actually their child.
Oh, so there was nothing to prove that you weren't. So it was feasible that you could be their child.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
they actually had to adopt me.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right. And you didn't know anything about this as a child, correct?
Nothing at all.
When did you first discover this?
When I was 10 years old. It was getting close to Christmas time, and I was snooping around the house looking for Christmas presents, trying to find that big score. Mm-hmm. And my mom was upstairs doing something. My dad was at work, so I decided to go in the crawl space in the basement because I knew that was a great hiding spot.
As you do.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I pulled the couch, I pushed it aside, and I went inside the crawl space, looked around, and the crawl space is pretty big. And I looked in the very back, and I saw all these boxes, and I thought, this is it. I found it. This is the Christmas score.
Oh, yeah.
So I crawled over to it, and I started opening the boxes. And to my dismay, all I found were cards and letters and headline clippings and newspapers and magazines. And I started reading them, and I started to realize that it was all about this kidnapping of Paul Joseph Fronczak. And I realized that was me. So I got all excited.
Yeah.
And I ran upstairs with some of the clippings, and I showed my mom, and I said, what is this all about? This is about me, right? My mom looked at me, and her face got so red. Oh. And she scolded me for snooping around the house. And she said, you know what? You were kidnapped. We found you. We love you. That's all there is to talk about, and we won't mention this again. So I didn't mention it again. But
this
I never
is your 10-year-old mind.
Yeah, exactly.
When was the next time you spoke to your parents about it?
I kept I kind of snuck and kept some of the clippings with me.
Okay.
And I kept them, I still have them to this day. Uh-huh. It's always been part of my life. We never really talked about it until I pretty much asked them if they wanted to do a DNA test with me back in 2012.
That was the first time you'd brought it up again.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of times growing up, and I, like my mom always said, if a stranger asks your name, don't tell them. If someone mentions the kidnapping case, don't give any information, because they were hounded for years after the kidnapping case.
Yeah,
They were traumatized by the press. I mean, they were after the kidnapping, reporters were climbing telephone poles trying to get pictures of my parents in their house. It's funny. I actually went on eBay, and I actually had to outbid and win some of the pictures that someone's selling. My mom in church with a rosary, a picture of Paul when from the hospital. Yeah, I actually had to pay for these. It was crazy. But they were traumatized by the press for a long time.
Jeez.
Yeah, so we didn't talk about it.
Right. Okay. When did you decide you wanted to know a little more about the situation? It's funny. I didn't realize it until after I discovered all this, of why I really was the way I was, and I wasn't happy in any job. I was always moving around. I moved probably 100 times in my life, different places, and I always kept the clippings with me. As I started growing up, I realized that I didn't look like my parents. I didn't look like my brother Dave. I didn't act like them. I had different interests that were never even introduced to me in the house. Dave was just like my mom and dad. Yeah.
But I was completely different. So I started to question, am I really Paul? But, it wasn't until like 2012 that DNA kits were actually affordable.
Right.
For the regular person. So I always joked about it, with my wife or at the time or whoever I was with. I wanted to get like DNA samples from my parents when they'd stay over, like, get some hairs off the pillow or something.
Yeah.
And but it wasn't until 2012 I actually thought it might be a reality.
So you had done nothing about it until DNA testing became available, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, because like I said, it wasn't really available for us.
Yeah. So you didn't do any kind of gumshoe searching or. Well, I guess you wouldn't have known what you were looking for, would you?
No, not at all.
Yeah. Okay. So all of a sudden DNA testing is happening, and what do you do?
So I've wrestled with this for a long time. I mean, I've really started to wonder if I was really Paul. And then when I had my daughter, and the simple question of the doctor asked for my medical history.
Yeah.
I spotted up my usual spiel I've been doing for the last 45 years. And then I really thought about it, and I said, am I doing an injustice to my daughter? Is this really my medical history? Is this really who I am?
Yeah.
So a little bit after that time, she was born in 2009. 2012 was when I actually found the DNA kit, and I bought it and I put it in my closet, and hopefully I would be able to use it. So my parents came out in 2012, and as they came out a lot to see their granddaughter and stuff, and they were here for about a week, and I wrestled with it every second of every day. And finally, about an hour before I was going to take them to the airport so they can go back home to Chicago, I finally blurted out, "Hey, did you really ever wonder if I was really your son?" And my mom looked at me kind of dumbfounded and said, "Yeah, we thought about it." And I said, "Well, what if we can really find out for sure if I'm really Paul? Would you do it?"
Yeah.
And I think I caught him so off guard that my mom said, "Sure, sure." So I ran in the closet, got the kit out, and within 5 minutes we're all swabbing away and I'm sealing the kit up. And I think it happened so fast that I really didn't understand what was happening.
Yeah.
And I took him to the airport, and it's only about a 20-minute drive, but it was the longest ride of my life. No one said a word. It's Pandora's box, you know? Like, we're finally going to know for sure.
And do we really want to know?
Exactly.
Especially them. Yeah.
Yeah, because for me, and this is like my holy grail. I mean, I wanted to find. I hate living a lie. I wanted to know for sure.
Absolutely.
So they get back to Chicago. They call me and they said, "Don't do it. We don't want to know." And that was the end of the phone call.
Okay.
So I wrestled with it for a couple of weeks. I had that kit ready to go.
Yeah.
And I had it in my desk drawer, and I passed it every 50 times a day. And finally, after that time went by, I grabbed it in the morning, and I said, "You know what? This is ridiculous. This is more important than just us and not wanting to do something. This is the truth."
Yeah.
And to live a lie is not living at all. And I put it in the mailbox, and son of a gun, wouldn't you believe it got stuck in the mailbox?
What?
And I thought, this is either the universe telling me, "Don't do it," or you really want to do this. You're going to push that thing through.
Yes. Oh, interesting.
And so I shoved that box into the slot, and I turned my back, and I never looked back.
Wow. And did you tell your parents that you went ahead and sent it anyway at that point?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
No.
Fair enough. I mean, was your thinking that well, they don't want to know, so I won't tell them?
Well, this is, okay, so in my mind, as I thought for a long time, I knew I wasn't Paul. Mm-hmm. But until you have someone telling you without a doubt that you're not Paul, there's still that window of you're on the fence.
And you're still you're floating, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't think about it until I was at work about a week and a half later, and I got a phone call. And it was the company.
Oh.
And they asked me about 15 different security questions. And I thought, wow, this is pretty heavy security just for a DNA test.
Yeah.
And then the guy said, "There's no remote possibility that you're Paul Fronczak."
Oh, so this wasn't like a family tree DNA or any of those.
No, this was actually
ones.
No, it's Identigene.
Oh.
And all they do is paternity test. So once he told me that, even though I already knew, the color drained from my face, my whole life flashed before my eyes, and everything I thought I knew about myself just vanished. All of a sudden, I didn't really know if I was, Polish. Am I really as old as I think I am? Yeah. Am I really a Taurus? I mean, all these things that I just took for granted that everyone just wakes up with every day.
Yeah.
It was taken away from me. That's when I decided that I was going to start my journey. I wasn't going to let this just vanish into the sunset.
No, you can't. You can't. We're not those kind of people.
Well, it's the first thing I thought of was my parents who raised me were the most amazing parents. Yeah. And they had this horrible tragedy happen to them. Someone stole their baby. And right before they had Paul, my mom had a baby that was stillborn. So then they have Paul, and he's kidnapped and out of the hospital. So I thought in my naivete that, you know what, I'll just go and find the real Paul and present him to my parents and say, "Thank you for everything you've done. Here's your real child."
Oh, my gosh.
I thought it would be that easy.
Okay, so that's the end of part 1 of my conversation with Paul Fronczak.
Well, you did not tell me it was only going to be part 1. I thought I was getting the whole story.
If I could, there would be like 5 parts.
Really?
Yeah. He's very interesting. So we'll hear the second half of that next week, you guys.
I'm excited.
Me too. Should we get out of here?
Let's do that.
Okay, talk.
Hello, everybody. I'm Richard Castle. Welcome to my podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at Castle Songs, or you can actually go to my website and see a little bit about what I do when I'm not on a podcast. It's richardcastle.com. I'm a musician, songwriter, and that's really all there is to know about me at this point in life.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
That's all you are. You're one-dimensional. I'm Julie Dixon Jackson. You can find me on Twitter at Jules Jackson with 2 O's. Find the podcast on Twitter at Cutoff Genes Pod, and the Facebook group is the Cutoff Genes Podcast group. Hey guys, hit me up. Please keep reaching out to me. Tell me your stories. Also, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It really helps a lot. I don't know if any of you guys read the review. We had a great review.
Wasn't that nice?
It was really nice.
Yeah.
It was really nice from a blogger. I wish I could remember her name right now.
It'll be in our
I'll give her a
corrections
shout out
corner.
next week. Exactly.
But it was very sweet and very nice, and I was thrilled to be, reviewed that
but
way.
if you guys want to gush about us, please do it on iTunes.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Because that is very helpful. And please also share us with friends of like minds that you think might enjoy the podcast. Okay? So I think we're out of here. And I have one more thing to tell you.
What is that, Julie?
The truth is in your genes.